Hello! If you're in a 3060, you might be noticing a few problems. So we're in May 2025 when this video is being made, and it's been made specifically for this ASUS GeForce RTX. This is the 3060. Its part number, hopefully you can see the part number, it's PH-RTX3060-12G-V2. Okay, so it's not a bad little card, and by today's standards it's still, even in May 2025 it still works quite well. And you can, generally if you can play the games how you want them to play, you don't need to upgrade. So you might have one of these and it might be malfunctioning, and this particular card is malfunctioning because the fan has basically broken. I'll spin that near the mic so you can hear it. So the fan, the bearings in the fan have gone, so the fan doesn't spin, so it gets very hot. Then the machine obviously shuts itself down to prevent damage. So what I'm going to do with this card is I'm going to show you how to change the fan over without taking the whole thing apart. Because if you have to take the whole thing apart, you have to repaste and repad the GPU chip and the RAM chips. So we're going to try and get it off without having to do that. So the first thing you need to do obviously is get yourself a replacement fan. So here's a replacement fan that I purchased. If you want to know where I got it from, then leave a comment and I'll put a link to it. I don't want to put a link in the main description just in case the link disappears. So if you do want to know where to get it from, then I'll tell you where I got this one from. And we'll take it apart and we'll swap the fan over. Right, the first thing we're going to be worried about is accessing the screws, because we're going to try and take the top cover off without taking the heatsink assembly off. So we're not going to undo these screws, because that one's a warranty screw, remember. We're not going to undo those screws there. We're going to tackle these ones down here. So I've got one in there, which I'm just going to unscrew. So there's one in that corner, so we'll take that out. And while we're looking at the orientation of the card, we will try and put the screws back in the hole that they came out of. Just going to get a little pair of tweezers to see if I can grab that screw and take it out. So I'll just hold the screw with the tweezers and then turn it, and then that takes it out, and I'll put it on the mat. And there's also a screw in there. Now with this screwdriver I can reach that screw in there. Don't worry, I'll do a close-up in a minute. So we'll take that screw out, and luckily it comes out clean. So what I've done is, there's where it says RTX. I've removed a screw from there and a screw from there, and you can see the top is already a little bit loose. So now when we go around to here, we see there are two more screws. There's one screw down there and there's one screw down there. The problem with those screws is that you can't get the screwdriver in. So what I did was I went on to an online retailer, not the River 3-in-1, another one, and I bought one of those. It actually came as a set. So as a set, I think it's PH-01 and 2, I think. So they're right angled screws. So I'm going to try and get it with the main thin bit, to see if I can get it with that first of all, which I can't. So I'll get it with that now. So what I'll do is I'll unscrew it with that, and then we'll take the screw out. It's not going to be a very quick process because of the angles involved, but if I can just get it loose enough to get it in there, I can probably undo it. And yeah, that's working now. So that screw there, that one in there, I can get in. I don't know how well you can see it. I'll zoom in like that. So you can see it's in there, and now it's sort of cracked. I can actually reach in with this screwdriver and just tease the screw out. It's not going to look pretty from your angle, but Hopefully it'll work, and if I can actually lift it out, that would be also very helpful. So I'll just undo it a bit more. And we'll see if it gets to the stage where I can lift it out. I have to use 2 hands for this, I think. And that's it out. Now at the moment they're all the same size, but I do like to put screws back in the same hole they came out of. This one here, that one right down there, that screw there, that's going to be a little bit, I don't know if I can I reach that one with the screwdriver? I can't really reach it, so I don't want to strip it, so I'll just use this one. I'll bring it up in close up, and you can see that that goes in quite nicely, doesn't it? So if you can't access the screws using a normal screwdriver, get yourself one of these. And I think they were just a couple of pounds. So I'm putting the screwdriver. It's quite laborious because obviously you don't get much of a turning circle on it. But once I've got it out, once I've got it clear of the, once it's cracked, I can then just pop that in and it should spin, and it is doing that. So either you have to spin it completely, or you just use that just to release the screw, and then you can go in and take it out. Now we mustn't forget that the fan is attached somewhere, and the fan is attached there, so we have to undo that. Now it might actually have made more sense to have undone that before taking the screws out, because this is all loose now, look. So I can actually lift that over and bring that flat, and then you can see the heatsink there, and you can see it there. Now this has actually got a little latching mechanism on it, so I've got to squeeze that and pull at the same time. So for that I'm going to need a pair of pliers, so I've got my trusty Leatherman. So I'm going to reach in and grab that and try and pull it out, and it comes straight out. So you can see there it's got a latch on it. Yeah, so that's that removed, and we'll just give that a tickle with a paintbrush while we're here, just to clear away some of the soot. I might give it a blast with the ooh. That was a mistake. I might give it a blast with the compressor before I put it back together, but it doesn't matter, does it? That wasn't why it was overheating. A little film of dust is not the problem. So I'll put that out of the way over there. And here's the actual business end of things. There's the fan, and there's where it's mounted. So I'm going to get the replacement fan and just make sure I get the right orientation. So it's going to go on like that, isn't it? Put that like that. And then we take these screws out here, put them to one side, and this one, put it to one side. Now it might be tempting to use an electric screwdriver to do this, and I think taking screws out with an electric screwdriver is fine. I'm a little bit wary about putting screws in though with an electric screwdriver, because they can be quite powerful, and you're screwing, generally you're going to be screwing into plastic, and it will just strip the plastic. So that just comes straight off. There's the old fan. It's got a rattle to it. I mean, I know it doesn't work, so that's that. And then here's the new fan. So we'll just position the new fan in the right place, and it should fit in because it's a proper spare part. And then we'll screw that back in. So that's that one. So there's 4 screws to remove from there, so I'm putting 4 screws back in and putting them into the same hole they came out of. See, I see a lot of videos where they just undo screws and just chuck them in a pile, or chuck them in a little glass dish, and it's like, okay, you can do that if you want, but that's not going to help people that are new to this. So hopefully these sort of tips are going to help you get a bit of confidence so that you actually have a go at this and do it yourself, because it's kind of fun. So that's the new fan in place, and we can see that it doesn't interfere with anything. Now this is a little cable here. Now the original one has got a bit of sticky stuff on it, a bit of tape, so I might just take that tape off and see if it will stick onto the new one, which it does. So that will just hopefully hold it in place a little bit, just to keep it out of the way of the spinning blades. And now we can put it back on, and we know that's the top because it's GeForce RTX, so we've got to put it on like this. So that means that this goes in here. Actually, this tape is not very good. I'll leave it, it's lost its sticky, so I'll leave the tape off, but I will put this, plug this back in. So I'll just move it round and we'll plug it back in and see where it wants to go. So that's in. It did a little click, which I don't know if you heard or not, and now I'm just going to position this where it needs to be and just tease it into place. And you can see it wants to sit, it wants to sit like that, so we'll let it do it. Then we'll bring it round, flip it over and see if the screw holes line up, which they do. And I'm going to put the two easy screws in first. So that's that one and that one. So we'll put that in there. I'm making sure that hole's lined up before I tighten it. I tend to put all the screws in and then tighten them up once they're in, because there's nothing worse than putting a screw in, tightening it, only to find that it's not in the right place to make the other screw holes clear. So that one's going in a treat now, so that one's all right. So now that one's in, I can tighten that one up like that, and that holds it on. So now I can be a little bit less cautious about how I'm doing things in terms of, you know, the top flapping around. Now we get to put these screws back in, and I think the best way to do that will be to grab the screw with the tweezers like this, and then just position it over the hole and see if I can push it in with the screwdriver and give it enough of a twiddle to get it started. It's going to be fiddly, there might be some swearing because it's obscured quite well, but I should be able to get in there and do it up. So let's just see if I can get it in the right place for it to work. It's very fiddly because of the angles, but this is a lot less fiddly than having to put the thermal paste back on and the pads back on and all of that. Now there is a chance that the thermal paste has deteriorated. That is entirely possible, but it's likely that just replacing the fan will be enough to resurrect this card. So I'm just trying to screw that in. It's kind of working. So that's got the screw in. Hopefully you can see. I'll try and manipulate it so that you can. Sort of there. There it is there, isn't it? See it there? And I'll just tighten it up by putting it in. It's not the easiest thing to use, but again, it's much easier than having to repaste the thing, because as soon as you remove the heatsink, you have to repaste it. So I'm just making sure that this is in tight. Now the last screw, which is the most fiddliest one. So again, I'm going to try and do it with the tweezers first, just to position it, and then we'll try and put it in. It might be easier to just try and put it in with my fingers actually, but I'll see if I can just do it with this little screwdriver thing. Just got to get it in roughly the right place and start turning it, and hopefully the thread will bite and it will go in, which is what it's doing. Yay! So hopefully you can see, I will move it so that you can see, that it's going in at a rather peculiar angle. But because it's so narrow, it's actually screwing it in. And it's slipping, but because I'm not using any pressure, I'm not going to strip this head of the screw off. And you won't even be able to tell that I've done it. So once I've got that in there like that, I can then just put it in and then rotate it just to get it in tight. And we've done it. So that's the fan swapped over. So what we'll do is we'll put it in a test rig, fire it up and see what happens. So we're back and it's in the test rig. So I'm just going to take the camera off its mount and show you that the fan is spinning absolutely beautifully. It's not making any noises apart from a subtle whirring, so that's good. Now I'm going to flip it over, so I'm just going to grab the top and flip it over. Don't say my videos don't contain jeopardy or danger. Don't do that at home. Don't move things around when it's turned on. So now you can see that the card is horizontal. That's how it would be in a case, although this isn't a case, it's completely open, so that's not that's not the thermal thing we're looking at. It just means I can get my little temperature widget in more easily. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fire up Furmark. So here's Furmark here. I use the original Furmark because it seems to work better than the newer one. I'm going to do GPU stress test and then ignore the warning and then let it do it, and then I'll press the Windows key and I'll launch hardware monitor, which is here. Hardware monitor, if you're watching, which you probably won't be, one thing that would be really useful is that when you're running it, if you set it, I'm minimizing all the things that I'm not focusing on in this particular video or this particular bit of testing. It would be nice if it would then remember there was like a menu option to go lock that. That would be quite useful because I'm not interested in, I mean, almost the fan speed's interesting because you can see the fan speed's whizzing away quite nicely. The GPU at the moment, the hotspot is 60, hotspot is 76, the main GPU is 61. So I don't care about the voltage, to be honest. Let's look at utilization. Where's that gone? I closed that, there it is. So utilization is 98% at the moment. So let's get my little widget and we'll see what real world temperature is. So I might get a camera. I think I'll get a thermal camera for this sort of thing. So I'll run it across. There's a 60. Because obviously I'm measuring. It's measuring the surface because that's obviously where the heat's meant to go. So let's try and find. There's a 62. Let's just let it give it a few minutes to warm up. If it's going to warm up. The point is it hasn't turned off. So I'm just trying to find the hottest bit. So that's a 60, I don't know how you can see that, but that's a 63.8. Can you see that? The light isn't great, is it? That's a 63.8. So it's pretty warm, but it's not, obviously it's within operating temperatures. So this is interesting for this reason. Obviously with this card the fan was broken, so on 30 series cards you're going to get mechanical failure possibly of the fan. That's an obvious one because the fan doesn't spin, it gets hot, the computer turns off, right? So that's an obvious thing. So if you then swap the fan over, there are ways to do it. In this video I showed you how to swap it over without taking the whole thing apart, without removing the heatsink from the circuit board, because if you do that you're going to have to repaste it and you're going to have to repad it. So what was interesting about this video, I hope, is that by simply replacing the fan without taking it apart, I didn't have to take it apart because the fault was entirely with the fan. Obviously the paste and the pads on this card are still working correctly because well, it's getting 71 degrees, which is actually fine when it's, you know, when it's 98% full 98% full load. So that kind of temperature is fine, isn't it? So try and so if you've got to change the fan, but try and do it without taking the thing apart is basically what I'm saying. And with this one you can do it, and if you get a set of these little widdly whittlers like that, then you can do it without actually taking it apart. If you have difficulty getting the connector out, I use the Leatherman, but you could use something like this, which has got it's actually for spark plugs on cars, but it's the small version of that, and it's a better plight. It's got like a hook on the end of it, so they're quite good for getting out connectors that don't have the latch on, because obviously you have to release the latch. But yeah, you got any comments? Obviously stick them in the comments. Liking and subscribing is appreciated, and thanks for watching.